which we Armenians know as
Matthew Karanian, photographer and author of the Armenian Highland, was one of the more than dozen speakers at Innovate Armenia, a festival of ideas and innovation that took place at the University of Southern California on May 18. Karanian spoke about his journey to trace memory and identity through photography in present-day Turkey.
The project for the Armenian Highland was kind of accidental. I had been traveling back and forth to Western Armenia, documenting our homeland, documenting the cultural artifacts that still survive after 100 years after the genocide. And I compiled a vast resource of documentary photographs and other information about our homeland. And over the years, I began to understand that I needed to share this with more than just friends and family. I needed to share it with as wide an audience as possible. And so I curated all the information into a book called The Armenian Highland. And the Armenian Highland name was chosen with great care because we Armenians sometimes call ourselves Western Armenian or Eastern Armenian. We say that we're Caucasian Armenian or Anatolian Armenian, and those are all misnomers. We are all Armenians, and those other names that I just mentioned have been imposed upon us by foreign nations. We are Armenians, and the land that we occupy and have occupied for 3,000 years is the Armenian Highland. I was working in Armenia as a professor at the American University of Armenia, and I took a trip, rather reluctantly, to Western Armenia. And it opened my eyes to all our history that still survives in our homeland. And after that first trip, I felt compelled to return, again and again and again. My very first trip to Armenia will always be etched in my memory, because my first trip to Armenia, to Western Armenia, was one that I didn't want to take. It was a reluctant trip that I made with some friends. And it was that trip that opened my eyes to our history, and I will always remember. I started in Adana, which was the destination that my grandmother arrived at during her death march. She went on a death march from Zara all the way to Adana. And she had lived in Adana for 2 or 3 years before she escaped to America. That was where I started. And from there I flew to Van, which was the home of my grandfather and all my paternal side of my family. And that was a heartbreaking trip for me because I had expected that I might be able to find my grandfather's house. And what I learned was that all the homes have been destroyed. But still, so much of Armenia lives in Van. You know, I'm trying to reach people who would not have normally read and become interested in our homeland. So I'm trying to reach younger people. And this is why my book is so heavily reliant upon photography, because we have great scholarship about our homeland. But what we don't have is great storytelling. And so my book is an attempt to tell the story about Armenia.